To rig up a manga image to have like a moving character, you would want to have a fusion composition here. You would go into the toolbox. I have them favorited. You bring the fusion composition down and you would open it. And when you open it, you'll have just the media out thingy. And you want to open it specifically in Fusion. You can right click and then click open in Fusion page. Now, what you would want to do is you'd want to bring down the manga panel and you want to bring a background node. And you would bring this background node into the input of the media out and bring down the alpha. This basically just sets your image whenever it's playing in the video to whatever resolution your timeline is set to. Mine is currently 1920 by 1080, which makes it to where whenever you do the, oops, wrong one, whatever that works. You would want to have a merge, by the way, but it would make, because this will allow you to rig it up, but it'll allow you to make it to where it's actually like this, like the actual video will look like in YouTube. And then after you have successfully set up to where you have the panel here, you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to... Wait, this is the wrong panel, one sec. Okay, this is the correct panel, my bad. Anyways, you have the panel here, you're like, what the hell, how am I supposed to get Sojo here to where I can actually like utilize him in my animation? Well, you would want to go right here in this little menu right here. There's all these useful tools. You want to specifically grab this one. It is a polygon mask. And then click this node right here, and it will make it to where the polygon mask is disabled. And then you can begin to mask out your character. So I'll just have like a jump cut or something, or a time lapse perhaps, of me masking the character. Okay. I've completely masked the character, and I've abstained from masking the arms here because I'm planning on masking them on the layer above. This little green thing here on the merge node is the foreground, so basically it'll show up in front of this image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the media one here, and you can press F2 on your merge nodes if you want to label them. So I will label this one body, and then you would do another merge node because you're going to have like your effects, like your transforms and whatnot, which will move it and animate it around in the future. And then the merge will have them overlapping on top. So basically you want to connect it to the green thing, which will mean that it will go in front of this image. And then you want to do the exact same thing. One thing I would recommend though, if you're going to do this, try to have like an idea of what the other polygon node will look like so that you don't end up having like gaps in between. But you can always paint over that afterwards, which I will go into later. Okay. Now I have managed to mask out the left arm. It would be his right, but my left arm, since, obviously it's to the left. And I've decided to mask out the sword as well because it would make sense that the sword would move with the arm, seeing as they're connected. And this will allow me to demonstrate how you would paint over something, because the character model, I'm not going to be doing the background part yet because that is like a lot more work, because I'd have to like mask out this entire thing, and this thing looks like it's going to be a nightmare to mask out, and then I'd have to color in the background, which this looks like it's above my level of expertise. I don't think I'm good enough for that yet. But yeah, so you just open the polygons. You got your polygons here. See, he's missing one of his arms, so you'd want to do same exact thing you did before. You copy paste the media one, and then you would relabel this if you want to right arm, and then you bring it down to the foreground of the previous one. Now, with the right arm, I might actually say that you should probably, instead of putting it in the foreground, since it is kind of like the camera perspective, it is kind of behind, you might want to instead put it below the body. So you just do this, simple as, you just connect it to that green bit, and then you connect that to the green bit, and it's moved. And then you would do the exact same thing, masking. We'll do the little time-lapse thingy. I gotta turn off this polygon so that I could see the arm. And there's that mask done. And if I turn on the polygon, you'll see I just have Soja here, and I have to paint this, and I have to paint this. Now, to paint this, you're going to want to be a little bit careful, because if you paint in the wrong spot, you'll end up making it to where you just don't have a sword here. You don't want to paint in the left arm media, okay? Because the left arm media is the furthermost layer, so whenever you do your transform, which you do shift space to open up that menu that I just did to type in the transform, and you are moving your transform, you'll see he still has the sword there on his waist. Now, to get rid of that sword there on his waist whenever you're moving the transform around, you'd want to go to the body layer, and you would want to shift space and then type in paint, and then press enter, obviously. And then with the paint node, make sure you're at the very start of your composition. So right here you'll see this little red bit. Make sure that's at the 0, and then go to the stroke duration and set that to some arbitrarily high number. Otherwise the paint that you do will disappear as the thing goes on based on how many frames there are in the composition. And then take this dropper thingy and just same color, brush controls, you can change the softness. I prefer to play on the smallest amount of softness so that it's not accidentally putting colors over here and stuff. And then you press shift and you hold control and then scroll with left click, and you can change the size of your thing quickly instead of having to go into this menu. And then what you would just want to do is you just want to color over, and then if you click 1, it will bring it into the first viewer head on the left here, or you could click on these. This would be the right and this would be the left. And then right here, this is how you would see your painting. And then you would just paint. And my technique usually with the painting thing is to do like a big splotch of paint at once, and then later on whenever I need to go back, because obviously this looks kind of shoddy, right? This looks really bad. I will bring over a different color and bring down the thing, and I'll just kind of like feather it through here. But sometimes, because the pixels are really small, but you just feather it through here, and that's kind of how I get my little Hokazano or whatever shading. Don't mind my butchered pronunciation. Mr. Horizontal, yeah, my horizontal shading. So yeah, I just feather it through. Sometimes you gotta increase the size because it's literally just 1 pixel there, and it'll start looking a little bit better eventually. This one's a little awkward though, because the pixel size is very small, making it very difficult. But you can kind of get past the pixel size being very small if you see this one's smaller than a pixel now, because there's slight softness still, which allows you to click on a different pixel and kind of make them a little bit smaller. And it still looks a little mediocre. And I feel like that's due to the this section right here. This needs to be coming together. I feel like that, and then I need to make this a little bit smaller. And then maybe get rid of a little bit of the gray. Now it looks kind of messed still, but I mean, it's better. And then down here, this guy's foot, he's got a little bit of the dragon on it, and based on the like angle that it's going at, it looks like he's pointing it up and then slightly down. So what I'm just gonna do is I'm just going to go like that, and then this bit right here, you can mask it out with on the paint node if you want later, or you could just paint over it if you feel like it. But that will show up in like the final thing if you're using a background. So you would want to have usually your paint. Actually, you know what? I will just do it like this. That looked really weird without it like that. And then you will want to have masks on your paint. Usually you'll want them to be the same as the body polygon or the polygon here. I'll go over that once we get to the moving pieces, because that's the reason that you want it, is because of the moving pieces. You can also change the alpha to erase things right here. This will allow you to erase any excess paint that you put down, or any like excess pieces, like if you wanted to get rid of this. You can also get rid of this by using masks. If you get a mask and then there's like another mask that you want to put into it, what you would do is you would take this mask, right? And then you click on the paint mode and you would change it to subtract, and it would get rid of the pieces that are not on the mask. And then here's where the paint is. But it would get rid of pieces within the mask. So you would just do a polygon mask here and then click the paint mode to subtract. But that seems good for the body painting until I start doing movement, which I'm going to start going over now. So I will change the second to the media out, and then I'm going to start with the right arm because I feel like this will be the simplest one to explain at the start. So I'll move the right arm to the left. Now, what you want to do is you want to grab a transform, again, shift space to bring up this menu, and then type in transform. You want the XF transform specifically, and there's this thing called pivot. It's this little green X here. Put the pivot where a joint would be. So in this case, it would be his shoulder here. And then whenever you do the angle rotation, it will spin at that pivot point. Now, as you can see here, there's empty spaces. And because this is like the bottom bit, what you're going to want to do, since there's these empty spaces, based on where you're moving it, so I'm going to be moving it from in to out. So I'm going to put a keyframe right there, and then I'm going to go 30 frames, which is about a second, and then I'll keyframe again, and then I'll set the angle to 0 so it'll be back to what it was originally. Click that little middle icon thingy that it was, and so now it'll be moving, but the graph is a little linear at the moment, but we'll worry about that later. And now that it is transforming, you're going to want to go before the transform. perhaps. Uh, yeah, before the transform, because that will get hidden behind the body. And you're going to want to do a paint, do the same thing you did before, change the stroke duration, change the softness, and then you're just going to want to make it look as if this is just a part of his skin here. So this will end up going behind the body, so you don't really have to worry about it that much, but whenever it's in front of the body, you do kind of have to worry about it. But basically, just paint here, make sure everything's filled in behind the body. You could see, if I go here, you could see what it's looking like behind the body. I'm just painting it to where he has like a little stub. And as you can see there, I got a little bit overzealous, so I'll just press Control Z and delete that bit, and then we can check to see how it's looking, and it's looking good. There does seem to be a slight bit here. Again, make sure you're at the start of your composition, and then you would want to draw that in. And it looks like there's still a bit here. I'm thinking it's probably this bit here. I accidentally wasn't at the start, so I will draw it at the start. And that looks good now. Now it looks like his arm has the skin the entire way. Now, there's this thing called spline. You would bring it, if you don't already have this menu down here, what you would want to close out all these polylines. It'll make it a lot easier to navigate. You click them, and once they become that, they close out. You click right here at the top right. It will say spline. Now, whenever you click that open, you will see the keyframes that you have put previously. So we have the keyframe for the angle on this transform here that's spinning the arm. And click the zoom to fit button where my mouse cursor is, and then just left click drag so that you get both keyframes, and then grab these little points and move them, one of them up slightly and one of them forward slightly. This is called an ease out graph. And basically what this is going to make it do, it's going to make the start of it be fast, and then it will kind of kilter off. It'll slow down at the end. So at the start, the arm comes up fast, and then it slows down. And then, now that we've completed the animation for that arm, we can now start beginning the animation on the left arm. Now for this one, again, you want to bring the pivot up and bring it to the joint, which would be somewhere around here, I believe. I don't know. I'm just eyeballing it. And I'm actually going to bring this here to make sure that my pivot is not within where my thing is, because if my thing is in it, then it'll be a little wonky. And then you just want to move the arm wherever it's going. This one looks really weird. The angle for this is a little weird. I don't know. So we're going to start it at about here. Looks okay. This is going to be a weird looking one. And then you want to do wherever you want to do your keyframe, and then reset it. If you want to reset it, you might want to move it elsewhere. You might want to start at 0 and move it elsewhere. I usually prefer to have them start somewhere else and then return back to their original state. But now you're going to want to do the paint. So you bring the paint, and again, it's just his skin color. You gotta make sure you're at the very start of your composition, set it to some arbitrary number, and then change the brush controls if you desire. And this one, you have to be a little bit more careful because it will, oh wait, shit. Never mind, don't do the paint. This is the foreground, don't do the paint here. You would want to come back to this paint that you were previously using to color out the sword, because this paint here will allow you to paint the background here, so whenever he's moving his arm, it's not weird. If you had done the paint at the top, then it would cover his chest, and you don't want it to cover his chest because that would look really awkward. So anyways, you start doing your paint in the background here, and as you can see, there is a little bit of awkwardness because his arm still has the shading by Mr. Horizontal. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to potentially make a paint for the top layer if you want, if you even care. I mean, this is a very short, like, second thing, and this bit is where the arm is like awkward is only going to show for a split second. So if you don't care, you don't care. But I'm going to do a little bit more detail with the lines here because I think it would make it look a little bit better. Oh shit, I wasn't at the start of my composition. Okay, if you weren't at the start of the composition, just press Ctrl Z a few times until it disappears. And now I gotta go to the start of the composition, and I will bring up the paint node on the second viewer window, and I will draw down the paint node and shade everything in like this, and then grab the color and just make sure it looks like the line shadows. This looks okay, doesn't look phenomenal. And then here, I kind of care about this little line here because it's kind of bugging me a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a paint node and put it on the top layer. And again, be careful whenever you're painting on the top layer because this will paint over everything in the lower layers. Again, make sure set all the things. And then I'm going to snag paint here. And I'm just going to whiten those lines. And I'm looking in the right view right now to make sure that I'm whitening it correctly. And I'm actually going to snag the gray here, and I'm going to make some adjustments here. There we go. Now he maintains his, oh my god, I wasn't at the start of my composition. One sec. Okay. We go to first frame, first frame, and then we grab the thing here, just redefine the lines here, but I don't want to redefine the lines here because that would cause some awkwardness, but I want to keep the lines on the other bit. It does look a little weird, but it's not going to be very noticeable. And then now you have your arms extending out. He's a little bird. And then once you have that all set up, you can grab a transform and you can increase the size. Just boop. Now I got this guy here. He's sitting here. Got him right here. Gonna do this. Keyframe this. There he goes. He's gone. And that's how you animate your character in Davinci Resolve. And also how you do the paint thing. You don't need a third-party software like Photoshop or anything. I'm gonna make it to where you could see it a little clearer instead of having the stupid spin, the stupid silly spin. It is a little bit slow because it's obviously a full second of him extending his arm. Usually you would want it to be a little bit faster. Oh, I also forgot to do the transform for the arm spline on the sword, which also makes it look a little weird. So for this one, since it's going downwards, you would want to go downwards. This is again an ease out curve because it slows down at the end. And then there you go. His arms extend out. That's it.